All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. In this video, I will show you how to draw the front and top view of a pretty cool looking gazebo, okay? So maybe that's something you want to know. Hopefully it is. Follow along. I would say this is probably an intermediate type project. I've got a buddy who is asking me to shoot this video for a little while now because he's going to take a test and this is part of his exam, okay? So let's go through some of the things that the sheet that he gave me says. We'll talk about those things and then we'll go from there, all right? The first thing is it says that you want to change your units to architectural, all right? So by default, when you're in AutoCAD, when you go into units, you're going to see the top left one is going to say decimal, okay? This will not allow you to type in feet and inches. If you change to architectural, you'll be able to type using feet and inches, which is with the apostrophe sign for feet and with the quotation sign for inches. Or if you leave the quotation off and just do like 5 enter, that would also be like 5 inches. Okay. So 5 apostrophe is 5 feet, 5 enter is just 5 inches, or 5 quotation is 5 inches as well. All right. So go ahead and hit OK on that. Grid. They're saying here, I don't usually use these tools. I don't use grid. I don't use snap. I don't use limits, but I'll explain what they are. Grid, you can turn that grid off if you want, if the grid bothers you. Grid on. Grid, you can type the distance or the size of each box of the grid. So if you type 1 foot, that means that every single one of these little gray boxes, if you can see it on the screen, it's kind of hard to see, but there's one box here, and that would mean that that is 1 foot by 1 foot, okay? If you don't type a size in there and you leave it by default, the grid is actually dynamic, which means that as you zoom in further, there are more and more boxes that it breaks up into, okay? So that's up to you if that's something that interests you and that you want to set up in your drawings, you know, have at it. All right, so snap. So if you turn snap on and you go back into snap and you do 2 inches and you're in a create tool, what's going to happen is it's going to snap around every 2 inches. And the point of this is that the drawing probably lines up on this invisible 2-inch grid, meaning there won't be any lines set at 1 inch or anything like that. Because you've got 2x4s that you're using to build this gazebo, okay? So I don't like snap. I think that I can draw much more accurate without using the snap system just by typing in numbers and using dynamic input, rather than relying on the snapping of the cursor and saying, okay, that's 2, 4, 6, 8 inches over, and then I'll start my line there, and then I'll draw it 12 inches this way. It doesn't make any sense to me, okay? But if that's if that's something that you want to do, then turn on snap. Limits. Limits are also a very outdated thing, I think. I never use them. What this does is it basically just sets your paper so where you can only type within those limits. So if I go to limits and I do, first of all, I want to turn it on. And then limits 0, 0 is the bottom left corner. And then it wants to know the upper right corner. If I did like 12 feet, 12 feet, that's going to set my limits where now I can't draw anything outside of those limits. But if I'm inside the limits, it'll let me draw. And again, it won't let you draw outside the limits. What is the point of that? I really don't know. I think it's kind of silly and outdated. Like I said, I think it used to be something with like printing, but now we use the layouts for printing different sheets. And, you know, there's just better ways to do it. So I don't really think you need to worry about limits. All right. Okay, so let's read some of the stuff that it says. So we're making this gazebo. We're going to make the top view first. You can see that it gives me a couple different dimensions there. All of these polygons have a radii. They're showing you the radius of the circle that either goes around that polygon or that goes inside of that polygon. And this is called circumscribed and inscribed, okay? So you can see that, in other words, it says the 6-inch polygon is inscribed. So that's going to be this one in here, okay? Meaning that if I were to put this circle back in, let me actually draw a line first. Oh, I got to turn snap off. See, snap's already bothering me. Off. If I were to draw a line in here like this, oh, my limits are on. Oh boy. All this silly stuff. This fluff. All right, so we've got this line here. And now if I were to draw a circle that is, let me change my circle back to radius. If I were to make that 6, you can see that the outside part of the polygon, the 8-sided polygon or octagon, is set to have the points touch the outside of the circle. So that is inscribed. That polygon is inscribed inside of that circle. For the other ones, let's say I was to draw another circle here, and I was going to go off the same midpoint, and I'm going to draw like this, you can see that now the flat parts are touching the circle, and that polygon is actually circumscribed around the outside of the circle. So one is circle in, and the other one is circle out. So what they're telling you is that all of these ones down here, you've got polygon radii 2 feet, polygon radii 6 feet, polygon radii 6 feet 4. Those are all going to be circumscribed. They're going to be outside the circle. And the other one, the 6-inch one, is going to be inscribed inside the circle. Okay, so that's pretty much what I needed to set up for you. Now we're ready to draw. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. And we're going to make exactly this right here. Okay, so you're going to go to the, let's go to the circle tool first. Okay, let's draw our circle down, and that's going to be a radius of 6. So I'm already on the radius tool. I just type 6, enter. You don't have to do 6 quotation. You can just do 6, enter. All right. Now, Polygon tool. You go back here behind the rectangle tool. You'll see the Polygon tool. By the way, in OS enter, I always have endpoint, midpoint, center, and intersection checked. I like extension on as well because that allows you to slide on different lines and measure a specific distance without actually drawing a line. And I'll explain that a little bit later on. Okay, so just have those be on. When I'm moving the screen around, I'm holding down the scroller on the mouse and then just moving my mouse around, and that's giving me a nice scroll or pan around on the screen. Zooming in and out, obviously, is just going to be up and down on the mouse here. I'm trying to give some of the basic stuff here just in case anybody comes across this drawing and you know, I don't want you guys to be afraid of it. Try to show you the basics as well, okay? All right, so here we go. We are on the Polygon tool. It's going to say, what's the number of sides? It's going to be 8. And then you're going to say, where's the center? We're going to put the center right there. We're going to do inscribed for this first one. And you can see it has the point, and that point is going to face straight down. And the reason why in this one the point faces straight down is because on the flat parts of it now, this will shoot off and hit the corners of the others. So you see this corner is lined up with that corner, is lined up with that corner, but is not lined up with this corner. This is lined up with a flat face here. Sorry. So we've got it like this, okay? Leave that circle there for now. It also tells you in these plans up here, or this little information that it gives you, that everything is based on a 2x4. So you can see that this is going to be 2 inches from here to here. That's going to be 2 inches from there to there, and so on all the way around the drawing, okay? Anything else that they write in here is not really that important, so I'm just going to leave it alone. It says you can use mirror for a lot of things, and we'll probably use mirror a couple times, okay? So anyways, offset to enter, and then you're going to go off of this octagon, and you're going to go in. Again, leave the circle for now, because if you don't have the circle, you can't put another one at a center point here, because technically there is no center point of an octagon. You would have to draw lines or line to get a midpoint, and then that midpoint you can draw off of. But why not just keep the circle there for now, and then we'll erase it later, okay? All right, so going back to my paper, we have 3 other ones that we have to do, this 8-sided polygons. We've got a 2 foot, 6 foot, and 6 foot 4 polygon, and those are still going to be an 8-sided shape. So 8, enter. You're going to do it from the center. You're going to do circumscribed now, and you're going to go 2 apostrophe enter, and that's going to give you 2 feet, okay? Again, we're going to go in there. We're going to do 8, enter. We're going to do the center again. We're going to do, by the way, if you don't get that center point, hover over the circle, and it'll give you that green mark, and then you can just click the circle itself. I'll show you on the next one. Circumscribed, and you're going to go straight down with your cursor, and you're going to do 6 apostrophe enter. So that gives you the 6 foot one. And then you go again, you do your octagon. What I was talking about is that if you're here and you don't see a green mark for the center, hover over this part. Oh, sorry, it's still asking for the number of sides. 8, enter. But yeah, if you don't see the plus here, if I hover over the circle, you can see that the green mark is now at the center. If I click, it'll snap it at that green center mark. And then I can do my circumscribed and 6 feet 4, enter. All right. So you end up with something like this. Now, offset, you're going to do the 2x4s. All of these go in. So you're going to go from here into. Don't go out, go in. From this one, into. At this point, yeah, I'm going to keep the circle still. I think we need that for a couple other things. Okay. So now I'm looking at these inside legs here. These inside legs basically go from this midpoint to this midpoint like this, but it's a 2-inch piece of wood. It's a 2x4, and it's centered on those centers of those legs of those octagons. Sorry, that sounded a little crazy. Which means that I have to go 1 inch to the right and 1 inch to the left and then get rid of the middle line. So we get something like this. So now we're going to use a tool called Array. Array is going to allow me to create an array or create multiple copies of something using what is called a polar array. So select what you want to array, which is going to be these 2 lines, hit enter, hit polar. Polar is kind of like a clock, so it's going to spin at a center point. So it's going to say, what is the center point of your array? That's going to be the center of the circle, and that's why we still need that circle. So we're going to click that. You'll see up here it says number of items. We know that it's an octagon and that there's going to be 1 in the middle of each leg of the octagon. So we're just going to do 8, hit enter, and then hit close, and boom, that part's done. Now, if you did need to edit this later on, you're not going to be able to because it's an array, but you can explode, click enter, explode the array, and now you've got a bunch of different lines again. So that depends if you needed to edit that or, you know, later on. If you don't, you can just leave it as an array. It's not really a big deal. All right. Okay, next thing here. These ones go off of the flat part of the inside one. They go through the diagonal of the second one and all the way to this point right here. Okay. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go offset 1, 1 in and 1 out. Get rid of the middle one. Little bit of trimming here. You just got to trim 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you get something like that. Now we can do the exact same thing here. We can take these 2. We could actually mirror these if we wanted over the midpoint, and that would flop one here. But I just think array is a lot faster. Let's show you a mirror just in case you want to do that. MI enter. You're going to go off of the center point, and you're going to go straight up, and it's going to mirror it over that line that you're creating from one side to the other, a vertical mirror. And then it would say, do you want to erase the source? You would say no, and then you're left with 2 of them like this, okay? But I'm going to do array instead. Again, it's a lot faster, so here we go. Array. Select what you want to array, hit enter, do polar, grab it from the center of that circle that we left there. Again, you're going to do 8, enter, and you should be left with, after you hit close array, or you can hit enter here, you should be left with that, okay? All right, now, again, I am going to just explode that just in case I need to edit anything later. The circle that's on the inside now can go away. And then there's just a little bit of trimming here. So you can see these go straight through until they hit that outside 6-foot radii polygon, which is exactly what I have drawn here. So you'll have to go into these now and you'll have to do trim. And you'll have to open up those 2. Leave that alone. Trim, trim. Trim, trim. All the way around for those outside ones. All right, we get something like that, okay? Now, the inside parts, they go straight through this 2-foot radii polygon, so that's going to be a trim in here like this. All right, so we're going to go around and we're going to trim the rest of these wide open. You can fast forward this part if this is boring. And that is it. The top view of the gazebo is done. Okay, so now let's move on to the front view or one of the side views, whichever one you really want to call it. Okay, what you're going to do is I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to show you the dimensions for this. It's very simple. Okay, I know it looks a little complicated, but it's really not. This 4-inch thick concrete slab has a right side and left side that's going to line up with the left side and right side of the top view that we just drew. So what you can do is do an X line, which stands for construction line, down the left side and down the right side. Because looking at this top plan, these are the outside 2x4s. This is the structure of the gazebo. This is the top of the slab right here. Even though the slab is so much further down than the top is, from a 2D flat view, they're gonna look like they're on the same plane. And that's what we're seeing right here, okay? So, all right, let's bring those sides down. I'm going to do an X line. I don't have to line up with the one I already drew, but I'm going to anyways. You can just click anywhere and just draw it straight across, but I'm going to line it up so it looks pretty, okay? And actually, it's, now that I'm looking at it, it's kind of bothering me that this is not lined up with that. Boom. All right, so we got those lined up. Okay, so then I'm going to do a trim cutting edges. Cutting edges is like, what are the two edges of, or the two boundaries that you want to trim something between or outside of, okay? So if I do the left side and right side, and then I hit enter, now anything I click is going to cut at those edges. So I'll click here, and I'll click here. I'll do trim again. I'll do cutting edges again. I'll click this bottom line and hit enter, and now it's kind of like a pair of scissors. It'll just cut it right at that line, okay? So we get something like that. The concrete is 4 inches thick. Offset 4, enter. You go 4 up. The, let's see, the peak, okay? The peak height, if you start, this goes 4 inches in because this is the concrete slab. Then it goes up 8 feet, and then it slants. And that slant is a 4-foot tall triangle here. So it's going to be 4 foot up, and then however far to get to the center, which we really don't need to know. We could measure it on the other top view, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to fall into place, okay? So I will show you that in a second. All right, so now extension. I was talking about that earlier. In OS, enter. If you have extension turned on, what that means, and also make sure that your command line is docked. Grab these little dots and pull that down, because sometimes extension doesn't work if it's not docked. What that does is, if I take the line tool and I go here and I don't click, I just slide my cursor, you'll see it says extension and it starts counting up. If I now type a number and hit enter, 4, enter, it'll measure 4 inches in and then start the line at that point. What's the benefit of that? Because instead of drawing a line like this, 4, enter, and then going up, now I have to go back and erase that line. It gets kind of tedious after a while when you have to do a lot of extensions. So slide 4, enter. Whoops. Slide 4, enter. You're going to draw up, and this is going to go 8 apostrophe for 8 feet. You come across. I meant to trim that and that. We don't need those. These are left over now. And you get something like that to start. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to slide 4, enter, and then go straight up. That gives me something to trim off again. 2x4 on the outside, so you're going to go 2 inches in. Offset 2, 2 in, 2 in. This top line that I have drawn up here right now is the top of the 8-foot line, which means we're going to go down 2 inches from there. So again, you're in the offset tool. You're doing 2, enter, and you're going 2 down. Now let's clean up the corners. All you got to do, trim that part, trim that part. You can see that this sits on top of those 2 legs, and you can see that in the picture right here, okay? Now, offset of 4 feet off of the top line of this 2x4. 4 apostrophe. That gives me a midpoint. As long as this is lined up with one of those and that is lined up with the same one on the other side, your midpoint will be accurate. If this was like that, you can't use the midpoint because the midpoint is not centered on the gazebo itself. So just be careful of that when you're trying to steal a midpoint like that. So you get that. Get rid of this line. All right, the other ones are going to come in a couple minutes when we get these lines inside drawn. All right, so we got the basic outside structure right now. All right, so the next thing I want to do here is I want to go back up to my top view, and this is basically what's called orthographic projections. It's just showing you the different sides of a 3D model, okay? So they line up with each other. Like I said, the left side lines up with the left side, the right lines up with the right, center lines up with the center, and if we did have a right view, then the bottom would line up with the bottom, top with top, and so on, okay? Why am I telling you this? Because we need to know where these corners are right here, where this comes down and ends up being the start of this 2x4. And that, my friends, is right on this point right here. You're going to do one there and one there. And that gives you a line point that you can snap to now, like so. Get rid of these rather than trimming them because it's faster. Draw straight down. Whoops. Get something like that, okay? Now, the 2x4 that's there, you've got a line and it goes down. That continues down. So actually, maybe I should have trimmed that before. I don't know. I didn't really think a step ahead there. But this one is now you're just going to pull that down. You can use the extend tool, or you can just click on it and pull the node down. And then you're going to do a 2-inch offset in and 2-inch offset in. And you can see that because it goes to left, to right. Okay. All right, next thing, offset 4 off the bottom line down. That's going to tell us how high this dip goes, okay? And it's going to be for all 3 of these. We're going to use the 3-point circle to do this. All right, so this says 4 inches here, which means that that's how far in this is going to go before the curve starts, and then how much is left at the end. Technically, this is an inaccurate representation because as you have an octagon that is bending away from you, that's not going to be 4 true inches there. And that's probably why they wrote typical, because it's really going to be like 3.5 or something because you've got a bend going away from you. Okay, so you're going to go offset and you're going to go 4 off of this inside line and 4 off of that inside line. Let's do one at a time so it doesn't get too confusing here. All right, so we went 4 in, 4 down, 4 left. All right, you've got a 1'2" measurement here. That is off the bottom of the top 2x4 down to get to these flat parts right here. So I'm going to go 1'2" off the bottom of the top 2x4. And then I've got something that is going to be a 3-point circle from here to this midpoint. So I'm actually going to back this over to there and back this just because we're only doing 1 right now, not all 3 at the same time. I'm going to keep it like this to make it a little simpler. Okay, so 3-point circle, I can go from this point to that midpoint back to this point. I don't need to know the radius or the diameter or anything like that. I just know that that curve touches those 3 points, and that's why it's a 3-point circle. All right, so now we can trim. We've got 1, 2, 3. After you get that, you can get rid of this line, you can get rid of this line, you can get rid of that line, and then you can trim that open. And then, oh yeah, also you don't want that and you don't want that, okay? Now, good news, this can be MI, enter, mirrored over the midpoint, straight down, and then you can do erase the source, no. All right, so now you've got the other side. I think I missed a trim up here. We got to trim that and that. That looks better, okay? Now, the inside one, it's the exact same thing, and technically, if I really wanted to, I could just copy this from the inside of the 2x4 to the inside of the 2x4, then go like this, and use the stretch command, okay? So now, how does the stretch command work? You start outside, you slide over with the green box, which is always to the left, blue box is right, you go to the left, and you get it halfway or so through the circle, and click, and then do S, enter, grab this right point, and slide that over, and it's going to fix that curve for us by just stretching it. If you didn't want to do that, you would just go 4 down, 4 in, 4 in, 1'2" down, and then do your 3-point circle again, okay? So that part's done. Railing, here we go. Standard railing height of 2 feet 10, which is 34 inches. 34, 36 is actually usually standard for the stuff that we do, but very close. So I added that because I got a 2'6" here and I've got a 4-inch here. So this 4 inches is saying that the spacing under the railing is 4 inches, and that's standard because it can't be any bigger than that. Because they don't want like a small child falling through there, okay? Especially if this was raised and it was on a deck that's a few feet high, or like a porch, like an elevated porch or an elevated deck. They don't want anything to happen with anybody sliding out of there. So that's generally code that the ground or slab or deck or whatever it is to the bottom of the railing is about 4 inches, okay? All right, so that means that I'm going to do an offset of 4 inches. I'm going to go from here up, and then I am going to do an offset of 2'6". That should get me from the bottom to the top. I'll then do an offset of 2 down for this 2x4, 2 up for that 2x4. And that's basically from here, 2 up that way, 2 down that way. Let's do the middle part here. This is a 2'4" opening. So if I were to draw a line from this midpoint right here and go straight up, and then do an offset of half of that, 1'2", so 1'2", enter, and then I go like that, and I go like that, and I get rid of this, you can open up that part like so. You can trim these. You want those to go all the way down and touch the ground. And then we got a little bit of trimming we got to do. This 2x4 should be wide open. So we're going to open that up here and we're going to open that up there. You can see that in the picture. You can also see it in mine right here. It's open all the way down until it touches the slab. So we're going to do that on the other one as well. And the outside ones as well. Maybe I'll trim these outside ones and then that. And the same thing on this side. You can do all these in one shot. Okay, you get something like that. Offset 2. This is another 2x4. That's going to go 2 in and 2 in. The top of the railing is always going to sit on top of that spindle or that leg or whatever you want to call it. So that's why you would trim this line and not that line. Okay. Otherwise, if it was the other way around, it would be strange because if I were to put some weight right here, that's going to fall right off. Okay. So you want it to be the other way. Whoops. Trim that. So it sits on top. Okay. Last things here. It's saying that 8 inches. And again, this is saying typical again, because as an octagon turns away from you, the perspective of something that is 8 inches is now smaller than that because it's turning it from you. So it's saying it's supposed to be 8 inches, but typical, because it's not exactly 8 inches, it's going to be a little bit less because it's moving away from you in an octagon 8-sided shape direction. Okay, let's just call it that. Okay, so we're still going to do 8 inches here though. And also real quick, we missed something. This corner right here of the slab, X line, bring that down straight. Oops. X line, bring that down straight. What we missed was these lines right here, because that's part of that octagon. It comes slant over slant. So I'm going to trim that. I'll trim there, and then I'll just get rid of the tops of those lines like so. Okay, we missed that part. Also, you're going to have, this is going to be wide open and like that. And now we've got 8 inches from the left side of a spindle to a left side of a spindle. Or the end one is from the inside of the 2x4 to the inside of the spindle is 6 inches. I'm going to start on the inside here, and I'm going to show you that there is a double right here. There's a long one and there is a short one. So that's going to be an immediate offset of 2, then 8, and then 8, and 8, and 8, and 8, and 8. You get something like that, okay? Now, a little bit of trimming here. And also, why don't we go ahead and just erase this stuff on this side? We'll finish this side up and then mirror it across, okay? So we've got, let's see, we want this to sit like that, and we don't want that line. So that's going to sit in there like that. We're also going to take these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to copy them, click anywhere, move to the right on the green line. The green line is F10 if you don't have that turned on. And by the way, since I have your attention here, why don't we just go ahead and throw this up on the screen? If you guys are enjoying this video at all, if this is helping you, if you've learned anything from any of my videos, please subscribe, please like. It really helps out with other people seeing the video and it getting pushed out into the YouTube algorithm world. I'd really appreciate that. Subscribing, you'll see other videos, or turning on the bell, you'll get notified every time I upload a new video, all right? And also, while I have your attention again, why don't we just go ahead and say, dude, why don't you follow me on Instagram? It's Cowboy Joe 2.0, all right? So check me out. It's like my personal life rather than AutoCAD stuff, because I do have a life outside of AutoCAD, all right? All right, back to the show here. Here we go. So we clicked anywhere. We're going to go to the right. We're going to do 2, enter, okay? And with that 2, enter, that gives us the other side of these 2x4s going across. We will not see them down here. We will not see them inside. We will not see them down here. We will not see them inside. And that railing is done. So we're just going to grab this stuff, and we're going to grab that stuff, and we're going to mirror that across over the midpoint, straight up, because it's going to be a vertical mirror. Click, erase the source, no. And we are done. Boom. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I apologize that it's as long as it is, but it's a pretty intricate little drawing here of a gazebo, and it's a pretty cool project. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Later.